Welcome back, Southwest Florida. Leap Pitch Live is traveling all over, and we're just thrilled to be a part of this. We just call ourselves the media sponsor because we cover everything that's happening in Southwest Florida, and we're here at
Christian Church.
Go ahead.
Unity Christian Church, Disciples of Christ.
If you guys don't know, me and Pastor Fletcher, we go back a long ways, and we always been really good friends. And I mess up the name of the church sometimes, but I always remember Disciples of Christ. And of course, this is Dr. William Glover. He's the pastor over at Mount Hermon Ministries, who, along with a lot of other organizations, can't call out their names. We called a lot of them at the other location, so don't worry about not mentioning everybody. Has been one of the spearheads and bringing this to reality, and I want to personally thank you for that.
Thank you. It's been a great pleasure to work with other community leaders to do this for and with the community, because without community participation, today would not be as successful as it has been.
And when I spoke to your wife earlier, and everybody told me that you were over here, I said, that's a nice touch. He's not at his own church, spreading it out. And what does that say about coming together, everybody working together?
I think the fact that we have 15 sites all over the community running focus groups simultaneously, asking the same questions, being conducted the same way, speaks volumes. It took a lot of community leadership to open up the organizations, to turn people out. We trained 30 facilitators. That's a lot of people investing their time. So our community cares. Our community is working together to try and turn things around. And I like to encourage people to change their own narrative about the community not being able to work together, because I think we're demonstrating we can when we put our mind to it.
That's right. That's the theme I've been hearing. And one of the things too is that Pastor Fletcher, is that you don't have to have 1,000 people to get good feedback, good discussion, good sampling of how the community feels positively and negatively about law enforcement and how they should interact with law enforcement. When you participated as a forum person, right?
Yes.
Focus group person.
Yes.
When you were sitting there and observing the process, how did you think it was flowing?
I think it flowed very well. People had some great ideas about how we can improve the community, and that's what this is all about.
Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts on getting ahead of things, being proactive, as Pastor Glover and I have spoken before, instead of waiting until something major comes up and then trying to do these kind of things?
Well, I think we should be proactive. We don't want to end up like some of the other cities have, with police and the community battling each other. We want to approach things together.
Mm-hmm. Pastor Glover, talk about when you start putting pen to pad, start thinking about, okay, how can we be effective? How can we reach into each community? You're sitting down in your office, you're scratching your head, and you're thinking about organizing things. Tell us about that thought process to cover the whole city.
Well, I think the key to organizing is dealing with people who have influence with the organizations they run, and also getting leaders to all buy into a similar vision. And the one thing that we all had in common with this process is we care about the issue of policing in our community. That was our common mutual interest. And so we organized and developed this process around that common interest.
Okay. And when you were approached by Pastor Glover or anybody else who may have approached you to be involved, what was your immediate thoughts?
Well, my thought was that it's about time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we need to come together to get some things done in the community, and this is a good start.
Right, great location too. By the way, when are your worship hours?
Worship hours at 11 o'clock on Sunday morning, 7:30 on Tuesday evening for Bible study.
Okay, can't beat it. Pastor Glover, we standing here are dealing in the church concept, but it's not only churches that are involved in this.
Absolutely not. There's social services organizations, Quality Life Center, Nations Association, Dr. Ella Piper Center, a network of community organizations in the Haitian community are participating as well. So essentially we targeted organizations that provided services, have an audience, and have some influence to help turn out the community. So it's not strictly churches.
Okay, and I know you want to stay neutral and just kind of tabulate the empirical evidence, tabulate the conversation, get the feedback going, but what would be the end product?
The end product of the information is twofold. One, to use to help educate law enforcement on police and minority communities. People don't like this thought, but communities different. Okay, ethnicity is different, culture's different. And so there are some nuances in policing law enforcement, policing minority communities that are surfacing through these focus groups where people are not angry, they're not reactionary, they're being very thoughtful, being very intelligent about their answers. And this is very viable, usable information that can help train officers. The second half of it is we're learning about ourselves in terms of why we feel the way we do and what the community role is in helping to solve this issue. So hopefully we can walk away with law enforcement owning their portion and the community owning their portion. And we ask one simple question at the end of the survey: when you think about a utopian society with law enforcement and our community, what does that society look like? And every person said that the society they see is a society where law enforcement and the community are working together to create a safe community and to keep officers safe.
Now, when I hear working together, also I mean working together mean also helping law enforcement do their job. And and I know, and Pastor Fletcher knows that one of the things in our community is that, oh, you a snitch, oh, da, 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 da. How do you guys handle that? What's your thoughts on that?
I'm so glad you answered that question because I learned something very valuable. And you're right, there is a code of conduct, a code of silence in the community, the Snitching Code. But there's a nuance to that code that I was educated to today. And that nuance is the code is against talking to people who are not a part of the community. So everyone talked about community policing, officers getting out of the cars, meeting people, being known to people, learning people. And in that way, officers will be perceived as being a part of the community. So when it comes to giving information, if a person talked to an officer who had been accepted by the community, that person isn't considered a snitch because that officer is a part of the community first and an officer second. So there's a nuance to the snitching code that I think if law enforcement was aware of, you can cultivate those relationships. And we overcome that stitching code. But because officers remain in vehicles and there's this wall of separation, they're not perceived as a part of the community, there's no conversation that takes place. That's where cultural competency comes into play.
And see, that is why people will talk to you, people will talk to me, people will talk to Pastor Fletcher because they see us as a part of the community cultivated over a period of time. Not necessarily about our occupation, but they see us on the ground level, use that as a point. Now, Pastor Fletcher, what do we do, just coming out of the discussion, what do you think we do as a community that we can improve on in terms of building a relationship with law enforcement? There are some things that I shared early on about a lot of times when law enforcement approach us, we don't even show common courtesy.
Well, I think that if we had more activities where the community and law enforcement could come together in activities that are not deemed law enforcement, but community activities, that way we can get to learn about each other and we can come together in that way.
Okay. I remember, let me get you to stand a little closer, stay in the frame. I remember Pastor Glover when I was a kid and never thought about it in any real way growing up in the projects. But our law enforcement used to come through the community and they would get out and throw footballs with us. They would just park their cars, they'd come through, we playing in the street. We didn't have a field in the hood, so we playing football in the street and we knew them. They get out, they throw us some passes, we go, we run, and then they might ride up, they talk to us. And if something came up, I can't imagine me being afraid to just say, hey, Officer so-and-so, that was so-and-so who did so-and-so. I saw him running that way last night, and I know Officer so-and-so is not going to snitch, not going to, tell everybody I said everything.
Well, absolutely, and the relationship building. And with the community and law enforcement working together, one of the things that surface in the groups is that the involvement in the community can't always be in the role of policing the community. That the involvement has to be relational, conversational, where officers are actually learning people, their names, etc., and vice versa. The groups are revealing that people are very receptive to that, and they value law enforcement. They know law enforcement is necessary and are willing to work with and get to know law enforcement, assuming we can bridge these gaps and overcome some of these obstacles that are being identified in these groups.
All right, hold tight. Pastor Fletcher, the point of race, is race a big factor, or is it just human relations that's the biggest factor in terms of people interfacing with each other?
Well, race is a factor because people have a tendency to want to be with people who are like them. However, the community part is huge, and communication is huge. We heard that over and over in the session that I was in, that we need to learn to communicate with each other and learn about each other, so we'll be able to be able to come together and talk about the things that are important in the community.
Would you look right into that camera right now? You were talking to Chief Baker, the head man, and Chief Baker was looking at this, and it's a possibility that he will be, because he and I interface. And talk to him.
Chief Baker, keep up the good work. We know that you're working on it, you're trying, and we're going to be working with you to see if we can get the community straightened out.
Okay. And Pastor Glover, what do you hope will come of all of this, and say something to Chief Baker?
I think what I hope comes of this is the end result of the last question we asked everybody: when you think of a perfect society with law enforcement and community, what does it look like? The vision that people have created: safe communities where officers know the community, community know the officers, and everyone is working together to root out the criminal element. That's what I hope the end result is. I know that's what the community wants. I know that's what the police chief and most, if not all, officers want, and that's what we're committed to working towards.
What's going to happen once we finish right here? Once this interview is over, you're going to go straight into another forum?
Yes, when this interview is over, we're having our final focus group for this site today.
Okay. Everybody's been coming out, as you guys know, from Lee Pitts traveling around, Lee Pitts Live traveling around the community. We've been catching some great stuff. We're going to catch a little, see how this starts off, and then we'll be headed over to another location. We'll be right back on Lee Pitts Live.